It was just after sunrise when the wind began to scream across the north face of Everest. The sky looked calm from a distance, almost peaceful. But up there, above 8,000 meters, peace doesn't exist. Oxygen is thin. Every breath feels borrowed. Every step feels like a gamble with death. And yet, in the middle of that frozen nightmare, a man stood at the edge of the world, preparing to jump. Not to climb down, not to wait for rescue, but to step off the highest mountain on Earth and fly. What nobody expected was that this moment would divide the mountaineering world forever. Some would call it courage, others would call it madness. Many would say it was disrespectful to the mountain itself. But for that man standing at the summit, harness clipped, parachute folded carefully behind him, this wasn't about fame. It wasn't about headlines. It was about proving something to the world, and maybe even more to himself. This is the story of the most insane Everest stunt ever attempted. A story about obsession, risk, betrayal, and the thin line between ambition and disaster. Because sometimes the most dangerous mountains are not made of ice. They are built inside the human heart. Long before he ever touched Everest, he was just another restless dreamer from the valleys of Europe. As a teenager, he wasn't the strongest athlete. He wasn't the loudest in the room. But he had one dangerous quality. He hated limits. While other kids played it safe, he climbed rooftops. While others followed rules, he tested them. The sky fascinated him more than the ground ever could. As he grew older, that fascination turned into obsession. He discovered parachuting. The first time he jumped from a plane, something changed inside him. The fear didn't freeze him, it awakened him. He felt alive in freefall, completely present, completely exposed, no hiding, no pretending. Soon skydiving wasn't enough. He wanted cliffs, he wanted mountains, he wanted to jump from places where one small mistake would mean instant death. That's when he entered the world of base jumping, a sport so dangerous that many refuse to even call it a sport. Buildings, antennas, spans, earth. Jumpers throw themselves off fixed objects with only seconds to deploy a parachute. There's no room for hesitation, no second chances. Friends warned him, "You're pushing too far, no one to stop." But stopping was never in his vocabulary. Every successful jump fed his hunger. Every close call convinced him he was invincible. Sponsors began noticing, cameras followed, interviews came. His name slowly built a reputation in the extreme sports world. But here's the twist. Fame can be just as addictive as adrenaline. And once you've jumped from cliffs and skyscrapers, what's left? Only the biggest stage on Earth. That stage had a name, Mount Everest. Everest has always attracted dreamers. Some want to conquer it, some want to survive it. Some just want to say they stood at the top. But he didn't want to stand. He wanted to leap. When he first announced his idea, to climb Everest and base jump from near the summit, people laughed. Even experienced climbers shook their heads. You don't play games up there. Everest isn't your stunt platform. It's not a playground. And they were right about one thing. Everest doesn't forgive arrogance. Since the first successful summit by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay in 1953, the mountain has claimed hundreds of lives. Frozen bodies still rest along its roots. Some are used as landmarks by climbers. That's how brutal it is. But criticism only made him more determined. He trained harder than ever before. High-altitude conditioning, ice climbing, oxygen management, weather analysis. He knew this wasn't just another jump. Up there, winds can exceed 100 kilometers per hour. Temperatures drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius. And at that height, even thinking clearly becomes difficult. Some sponsors backed out, afraid of controversy. Insurance companies refused coverage. A few close friends distanced themselves. One even told him, "If you do this, don't expect me to cheer." But he kept going. What nobody expected was how complicated the politics would become. Climbing Everest requires permits, coordination, and strict rules. Authorities worried his jump could endanger other climbers below. Expedition leaders feared falling ice triggered by his launch. Some accused him of disrespecting traditional mountaineering values. Tension grew. Was this innovation, or was it ego disguised as bravery? The expedition season arrived. Base camp was crowded. Tents stretched across the glacier like a frozen city. Sherpas carried loads through dangerous ice falls. Climbers from different countries prepared for their summit attempts. And in the middle of it all, he prepared for something nobody else had come to do. At first, many climbers avoided him. Some whispered behind their backs, "That's the stunt guy. He's going to get someone killed." But others were curious. Late at night, inside heated tents, conversations grew deeper. "Are you scared?" someone asked him. He paused. "Of course.
scarce," he said. "But fear is information. It tells you what matters." The climb began. Through the Khumbu icefall, creaking ladders over bottomless crevasses, through Camp 2 and Camp 3, where exhaustion starts to blur reality. Each rotation pushed his body closer to its limit. Then came the death zone, above 8,000 meters. Up there, your body is dying slowly. Cells begin shutting down. Judgment becomes unreliable. Simple tasks feel impossible. And yet he carried extra gear, a modified parachute system designed for extreme altitude deployment. Every gram mattered. Every decision mattered. Weather windows on Everest are rare. Sometimes climbers wait weeks for the right conditions, and when the forecast finally showed a narrow window, everything moved fast. Summit bush. Headlines glowing in darkness, crampons biting into ice, wind tearing at exposed skin. Hours passed, step after step after step. Finally, the horizon began to glow orange, the curvature of the earth visible in the distance. And there it was, the summit ridge. He stood at 8,848 meters, the highest point on the planet. Most climbers cry at the top. Some call family. Some take photos and descend quickly before conditions change. He did something else. He walked toward the edge. His Sherpa guide looked at him with concern. "Are you sure?" the guide asked quietly. "There's a moment before every jump where time slows down. The world becomes silent. You become aware of your heartbeat, your breath, your existence." Up there, that moment felt eternal. Below him stretched the massive Kangshun face, a drop of nearly 3,000 meters. No room for error, no backup plan. What nobody expected was how strong the wind suddenly became. A gust slammed into him, nearly knocking him sideways. Snow blasted across the ridge. For a second, doubt crept in. Was this the mountain's warning? Radio chatter filled the air. Other climbers were descending. Some were angry. "You're insane. Don't do it." But turning back would mean accepting that fear had won. He checked his lines one last time. Harness secure, parachute ready. And then, he stepped off the highest mountain in the world. For 2 terrifying seconds, he was falling. No parachute, no control. Just gravity pulling him toward the earth at unimaginable speed. Then he threw the parachute. The parachute exploded open behind him. A violent jerk snapped him upright, and suddenly, he was flying. Above glaciers, above cliffs, above history itself. Radio silence turned into chaos. Shouts of disbelief echoed from climbers watching from below. He carved through the thin Himalayan air, steering carefully, fighting unpredictable gusts. At that height, parachutes behave differently. Air density is low, reaction time is limited. One mistake, and he would crash into ice at full speed. As he descended, oxygen returned slowly to his brain. The mountain that had seemed impossible minutes ago now stretched beneath him like a frozen kingdom. He aimed for a safe landing zone far below, where part of his team waited anxiously. The landing wasn't perfect. Wind dragged him across snow and rock, tearing fabric and bruising ribs. But he was alive. Alive. News spread instantly. Videos went viral within hours. Headlines called it historic, reckless, legendary, and irresponsible all at once. The mountaineering community was divided. Some praised the precision and courage. Others were furious. He turned Everest into a circus. He risked other climbers' lives. Debates exploded online. Sponsors who once hesitated suddenly wanted in. Interviews flooded in. Fame multiplied overnight. But here's what most people didn't see. Back at base camp, tension lingered. One climber confronted him face to face. "You think this is about you?" the climber snapped. "People die here." He didn't argue, because deep down, he understood the truth. Everest is sacred to many. It represents struggle, humility, survival. And maybe, just maybe, he had crossed a line. In the weeks after the stunt, the emotional weight began to settle in. At first, adrenaline masked everything. Applause, cameras, social media praise. But late at night, alone, he replayed that jump again and again. The gust of wind, the split second where he nearly lost balance, the possibility that one miscalculation could have triggered tragedy, not just for him, but for others below. His family had watched the footage in horror. His mother didn't sleep for days. Friends who once admired him now questioned his choices. Was it worth it? Physically, he recovered quickly. Bruised ribs healed, scratches faded. Emotionally, it was more complicated. He realized that he hadn't just jumped off a mountain, he had jumped into controversy. Invitations to speak at events came with criticism attached. Interviews weren't always friendly. Some mountaineering groups pushed for stricter regulations to prevent similar stunts in the future. He became a symbol, either of fearless innovation or reckless ego. There was no middle ground, and that pressure was heavier than any backpack he had carried to the summit. But something else changed inside him too. For the first time, he felt satisfied. Not because of fame, not because of money, but because he had faced the biggest fear of his life and survived. Still, satisfaction can be dangerous, because once you've stood on Everest and stepped into the sky, what's left? The ending of the story isn't about another jump, it's about a question. Why do humans chase the impossible? From Edmund Hillary to modern climbers risking everything for a summit photo, the mountain has always tested ambition. Some climb to conquer, some climb to discover themselves. He jumped to feel free. Was it insane? Maybe. Was it brave? Maybe. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Everest doesn't care. It doesn't care about headlines, debates, or viral videos. It stands there, silent and unmoved, long after the arguments fade. The most insane Everest stunt ever attempted wasn't just about flying from the summit. It was about the fragile line between courage and obsession. And the next time someone stands at the edge of that mountain, looking down at the world below, they'll have to ask themselves the same question he faced. Am I chasing glory, or am I running from something inside me? Because sometimes the most dangerous leap isn't the one you take off a mountain, it's the one you take into your own fears. and not everyone comes back from